This is your first look of the new Mercedes EQS 580 SUV. You've seen the sedan on the show, but now they have an SUV with that range, with those tech features. We're going to get you the whole review, but for my short drive to the airport in Hyderabad, I want to tell you whether this is a true bang for your buck and does it pass the tech check. Let's get inside. Cruising through the fireflies as I drive in Hyderabad, the Mercedes EQS 580 SUV. The sedan was an absolute pleasure to drive. This one's a smooth criminal as well. Very stiff suspension, and of course you have a bunch of different modes. It has a dynamic air suspension. They claim this comes with a range of 809 kilometers. So if it's giving you 600 to 650 kilometers in the real world, I think that's a great deal by itself. It would be perhaps the longest range you get on any electric SUV. I'm just going to turn on the air conditioning because it's a little warm here in Hyderabad. The weather has been changing. The car obviously comes with a bunch of features. I want to tell you about some of the top features in this car while I drive to the airport. Welcome to my spaceship, the cockpit of the EQS 580 SUV. This is perhaps the SUV with the maximum amount of range in India when you're talking about an electric SUV. Luxury extraordinaire. Okay, this is the real test of the EQS 580. I'm driving to Rajiv Gandhi International Airport in Hyderabad, and it's quite congested here in the city. You look at the augmented reality overlays on the map on this massive 56.4-inch hyper screen running with MBUX, which is perhaps the top 2 or the top 3 OSs, operating systems in any car. But that's the basic. What else in terms of tech really works on this airport run? If you have a lot of luggage, this car has nearly 800 plus liters. If you put the third row of seats down, honestly, it's not a car where you'll use the third row of seats, but if you really want to use them, you can have the kids at the back perhaps. The middle is luxury, absolute luxury if you talk about the middle row. And if you fold that as well, you have over 2,000 liters of space. So no shortage of space in this SUV. Industry and class leading range on this one. Over 800 kilometers is what they claim. Over 600 kilometers is what we get when you're driving this. A really cool feature that no one talks about on the EQS 580, and this is my first time driving in Hyderabad, so bear with me because I'm trying to get a hold of the traffic. I feel quite confident, and it's reassuring that you're sat in quite a safe cabin like this one. If I flick the paddle shifters, this is not gears that are changing on this electric car. They are actually, well, recuperation levels. If you want brake regeneration, how much should the recuperation energy be? Should it be, well, the braking be a lot more jerky? Should it be stronger? Should it be eased out? That's what this controls. And if you flick it twice, this one, it goes into intelligent recuperation mode, which I find fascinating based on how I drive and based on the amount of space between me and the car up ahead. It's like ADAS and a lot of those other sensors being used, I think. But what's cool about it is that it manages to brake with that level of recuperation basis my driving style, which is kind of cool that cars are doing this. Now, of course, you have the ADAS features. It comes with automatic cruise control, lane keep assist, and you have active brake assist as well, which I turn off usually in a Mercedes car when I'm driving in the city. I don't want to take any wrong turns, so I'm using actually the MBUX, the Mercedes maps over here, which I'm quite impressed with. The animations are amazing, much better than Google. And I love the augmented reality overlays, those 3D overlays which tell you take a right, take a left. Now I'm hoping that I get to the airport on time. It's saying 22 minutes. Google was saying a little bit more. But it's nice to be here in Hyderabad driving the EQS 580. What else in terms of tech really works? You have 64 different lighting modes with the ambient lighting in this particular car. HEPA filters with the cabin air purification. Something interesting because while this is placed as an EQS, is it more like a GLS or a GLE? That's the question that we can really talk about when we've driven this car a lot more in our extensive review. But right now, whilst you're driving it, it seems like it's sat somewhere in between. Even the sedan is somewhere in between the E and S class, but it is the flagship, premium, top-of-the-line offering by Mercedes in the sedan category and now in the electric SUV category. And if you're talking about that, they've given you a rear comfort entertainment package, which is standard. It has these screens. There's a Samsung tablet in the middle as well. There's massage and of course seat ventilation here in the front. the thing that really worked for its sedan sibling was the fact that the cabin, especially in the evening, looks like $1,000,000. It lights up like it's the Festival of Lights. Very tastefully done, and all the screens have some purpose. You have the instrument cluster right here, and you can do all sorts of things, change the modes, get all the information you want, understand what the battery status is like. This screen is obviously the heart, the brain of the entire operation, and then you have a passenger screen as well where basic details are shared. 0 to 100 in 4.5 seconds, under 5 seconds in a car of this size. Some people are talking about the design, saying it doesn't look as nice as the GLS. I really don't agree with that, because when you're talking about an EV which comes with this badging and with the whole point about there being an EQS 580 sedan which was brilliant in terms of performance, you have to make it aerodynamic. You know this car is higher than the sedan, you know it's heavier than the sedan, and you know that the wheelbase is different as well. The suspension is stiffer. It comes with all sorts of modes over here: dynamic, eco, off-road, and then of course you also have a bunch of other modes. You look at the traffic light view, which you're seeing across Mercedes cars, even in their base variants, but it's nice to see it with this particular car as well. If you're talking about cabin air purification, there's the attention to detail. There is this specific scent, which is Mimiosa, which the car automatically has. I think it's an AMG sort of fragrance, which means that the car smells characteristically like a Mercedes. It's that sort of attention to detail. When you're spending over $1 crore on a car, I think you expect that, but it's good that you expect something, and even with those sort of expectations, the car and the brand seem to deliver. I'm here at a red light, and honestly, at my height, which is nearly 6 feet tall, I have to bend down in this sort of an SUV to see the red light. And now it's turned green. You look at it over here in traffic light view, and this is the first time I've understood why this is such a useful feature. I thought this was a first world sort of a problem, but if you're driving this car, you will find this feature and all of these features very nifty and very handy. I just want to say this is unfiltered, unscripted. I am telling you what I feel like after driving this car for the first time in Hyderabad. I haven't had any sort of briefing, and the suspension's fairly decent. Not as nice as perhaps some of the other sedans, but for an SUV it's great. The fact that you can even take this off-roading. The turn radius is absolutely amazing in this car because it has a feature from its sedan sibling, which is rear axle steering. It tilts at 10 degrees. Really, taking a U-turn in this car is like driving a small car, honestly. For a car this size, it is fascinating that they've been able to do this. I know a few other luxury cars do this, but it's high time any car which is over a certain length gets this feature. The heads-up display is just mind-boggling in terms of it being a full screen altogether. I know these screens are counted when all the reviewers talk about it, but what I'm seeing on the heads-up display is the least, well, intrusive in terms of how it's projected up ahead of me, but it's giving me all the data I need. I don't need to look at the screen at all, which is a great implementation. I think Mercedes gets it right with refinement, and they're doing so well here in India. There are a lot of learnings. A lot of people said Mercedes are not cars that are meant to be driving. They're cars that are meant to be driven in. BMW cars are more performance oriented, but what you're seeing with so many launches, and there's way too many launches from the house of Mercedes, but we're happy about that. We have more to review, and you realize that with every iteration, the tech gets better, everything gets refined, and the India team is open to feedback. There are things we've shared after drives. It's very reassuring and nice to know that some of these things are taken seriously. You've seen this with some of the Indian manufacturers as well, and it becomes a responsibility on our part to make sure that we are reporting how we feel. In this particular car, I think the cabin's done a fairly decent job. 0 to 100 under 5 seconds in the EQS. Oh, in sport mode, it definitely does the job. It's going to take a quick turn here.
Continue on Airport Approach Road for 3 kilometers.
What an absolute joy to drive this SUV. It's going to be an interesting road trip companion for sure.